Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I will be going over the Model of Human Occupational Screening Tool, also known as the MOHOST. So this is what it looks like. Here's the manual, and when you first open it up, there is a table of contents, and it gives you a lot of great resources and information about the MOHOST. It tells you how to administer the MOHOST. It gives you treatment planning guides, guidelines for the rating scale, and it also gives you some guiding questions and case studies in case you ever want to take this and practice with the case study that it provides before you use it on a client in real life, which I found very helpful and interesting. So the MOHOST is a standardized assessment, and it measures occupational participation of the client. The MOHOST defines occupational participation as self-care, productivity, and leisure, or things that could also be identified as ADLs. So to jump right into the assessment and what it contains, so it contains 6 areas of occupational functioning with 24 items. So each area has 4 items. So the 6 occupational functioning areas are motivation for participation, pattern of occupation, communication, process skills, motor skills, and environment. So there are numerous observations that can be made over several weeks until sufficient data has been collected. Data can additionally be collected through interactions with caregivers and other professionals that interact with the client. And using all the data, the therapist will rate the client's function on a FAIR, F-A-I-R, 4-point scale. And I will talk more about what all that means throughout this video. So first, to talk about those 6 occupational functioning areas, a brief description of what those mean. So motivation for occupation. So how is the client motivated for self-care, productivity, and leisure? So pattern of occupation. How does the client organize their self-care, productivity, and leisure? Communication and interaction skills. So how does the client, does the client, have adequate social interaction skills to complete their self-care, productivity, and leisure? Processing skills. So can the client organize themselves with their self-care, productivity, and leisure? Motor skills. Can the client move themselves and objects around them during their self-care, productivity, and leisure? And the environment. So does the client have supportive social and physical environment to allow for meaningful self-care, productivity, and leisure activities? Okay, so administering it. So the occupational therapist can administer the MOHOST in the initial stages of assessment when planning treatment for the client. The OT can use it to document change when progress is being made or whenever there is a regression in progress. And then the OT can also use it in discharge planning or when they are referring the client to new services. The MOHOST is intended for patients with mental health conditions that have an inability to tolerate lengthy interviews, demonstrate poor insight or concentration, or have difficulty expressing concerns. The MOHOST has successfully been used on clients with learning conditions and disabilities. It is also intended for adults 18 to 64 years of age or older adults 65 or older. So, gathering information from the MOHOST. The information can be gathered through an informal observation in open settings, a formal observation one-on-one or in a group. It can be a discussion with the client regarding their motivation, interests, roles, and routines. It can be a discussion with caregivers and the multidisciplinary team regarding observations. It could be through reading case notes or completing other formal assessments and going based off of those assessments. There are also several ways to complete the MOHOST. You could do it with the client, like I said, one-on-one or in a group setting. It can be in an open environment or not. It can be with a caregiver or other members of multidisciplinary team of the client. The OT can do it alone and discuss the findings with the client later. Or the OT can do it alone and share the analysis with the client when it's deemed appropriate. So to expand on that a little bit, an example could be if you're wanting to give this assessment to a client, but you feel that they may try to change their responses or adapt how they are performing their occupations. so that it's something that they think the OT wants to hear or see. You can do it alone and then come back to the client when you think it's appropriate and share the information with them. So timing of the MOHOST assessment. So the MOHOST actually gives several examples of how long it may take to administer. So it really just depends on the location setting where you are giving the MOHOST and the client themselves. So in the manual, it states that a period of 1 week may be enough time in an acute care facility to get adequate information. In a community setting, it said 2 weeks or more may be needed. So it really just depends on that setting. And but if you are going to do it all in one sitting, it says that it will take 40 minutes itself to administer to a client, and then 10 to 20 minutes to write up your analysis and to score if you're not doing that as you go. So scoring and rating scale. To jump into that, something that I want to mention, there are 4 forms that are included in the manual, and every form has a rating scale, so you're not ever going to be in need of it. Like, it's always going to be on the form. You're never going to have to look for it. It's just going to be right there, which is very helpful, and it provides consistency with scoring. So the rating scale. The 4-point rating scale is based on F, A, I, and R, FAIR. So each of those has a meaning. So F stands for facilitates occupational performance or participation. A is allows occupational participation. I is inhibits occupational participation. And R is restricts occupational participation. And it's all going to be right here every time on the different forms. It's going to be somewhere in the top. And then when it is not clear if the on which one of these 4 options and the OT is stuck between 2, it's best to go with the lower option, like to grade low, and then reassess later and then score them higher if it's for sure the higher of the 2 options, if that makes sense. So the first time you give it, if you're stuck between allows and inhibits, it's best to go with inhibits and then reassess later in your treatment and confirm that it is in fact allows before you give them the A. So to jump into the different forms, like I said, there are 4. The one that we are going to be using in this demonstration is the original MOHOST form that is recommended through the manual. So it looks like this. It's one I've been holding up. And you'll just put the information of your client here, your information here, so who's giving the assessment, the location of the assessment, the date you had first contact with the client, the date of the assessment, and your signature, all of that great information. And in this little section right here, this is where you're going to write your analysis of strengths and limitations of the client. And then here, this at the very top are the 6 occupational areas that I was mentioning. And each of the areas has 4 components. So it makes the 24 subcomponents in total. And then here, so you'll go down and it'll be your FAIR scale. So main component is the occupation, and then the 4 subcomponents in each group, and you will score going downwards like this. This form also provides 3 pages of rating information for you to reference to make sure that you are accurately scoring your client. So here's just what this looks like. So a quick little example of it. We'll go to the very first occupation. So motivation for occupation, the first one right here. We're going to go straight down. So right here is appraisal of ability. And then there's an F, A, I, and R. So an example, I'm observing my client, interviewing my client. and I'm focusing on their appraisal of ability. So if I want to make sure that I'm accurately scoring them, I can go to the little section that says motivation of occupation, and then go to appraisal of ability. And then here in the little description it says understanding of current strengths and limitations, accurate belief and skill, accurate view of competence and awareness of capacity. And then to give them an F, it says client accurately assesses own capacity, recognizes strengths, and is aware of limitations. To give them an A, it means reasonable tendency to over or underestimate own abilities, recognizes some limitations. The I for inhibits means that the client would have difficulty understanding strengths and limitations without support. And to give them an R for restricts means the client does not reflect on skills, fails to realistically estimate own abilities. And it gives you that for each of the 4 sections in the main occupational categories. So you will always be able to look back and reference this and make sure that you're giving them an accurate score. And that's also very beneficial if multiple people give the client this assessment. It ensures that it's reliable. Another form is the multiple summaries form, and it looks like this. So it is basically 3 of these right here, of this whole section right through here. So up at the top, you're going to have client's information, your information, and here is the rating scale again right here. And then you're going to have 3 of these summary of ratings sections. So like your 6 occupations, the 24 components, the rating scale right here. The reason there are 3 for multiple settings is if you are working with the client in more than one setting. For example, I'm working with the client at home, at work, and at school, just as an example. So here I would write the date that I assess the client at home, the date that I assess the client at work, and the date that I assess the client at school. And I would fill them out based on the different environments that I am working with them in. That way you can see how their occupations change depending on the setting. And then the next page will just be the little area where you write your analysis of the strengths and limitations of your client. And then there are 2 other sheets. There is a multiple observation and a single observation, and these are data sheets. So you can just put all of your information that you gathered through the single observation and the multiple observations here on these data sheets and write out comments for your client. And this is just what they look like. So this is the multiple, and this is the single. And then whenever you are giving out the MOHOST assessment and administering it, as I mentioned earlier, it can be through observation. So it can be you watching your client participate in these activities and you noticing their motivation, their patterns, their communication, interaction, processing, their motor skills, all of that stuff. You can also do it through interview style questions or like a questionnaire. So the MOHOST provides sample questions. It's usually like a page or 2 long from what I have seen in the manual. So for this one and what we're going to be doing in our demonstration is in a mental health setting. So this is a little packet of sample questions to give in a mental health setting, and it also has it based on one of the 6 occupation functioning areas. So this is patterns of occupation questions. These are questions for their skills, such as like their motor communication and processing. These are questions to ask about their environment. And then these are questions to ask about their motivation, the rest of them. And then in the back of the manual, it gives you different setting examples, such as, like I said, mental health, forensic settings, physical settings, older adult mental health settings, and I think acute inpatient. So there's plenty of resources in the book, which is great, that can help you and assist you in completing and administering this. So Now we are going to move on into the demonstration portion of the video. Since it does take 40 minutes to administer, we are going to do a shortened version where I am gathering information from a multidisciplinary team and caregivers, and then I'm going to be filling in the gaps with interview style questions with my client. Hi, I'm Kaleigh. I'm the occupational therapy student that will be working with you today. Can you verify your name for me before we get started?
Mallori.
Mallori. Perfect. Okay, so we met a couple days ago. Do you remember talking with me a few days ago? Okay. And I know that you told me a little bit about what's going on in your home and personal life, about your anxiety and depression and the passing of your husband. And I just want to get to know a little bit more about how you're participating in your occupations and everything you need to do in your daily activities. So if it's okay, I want to give this assessment today. It's called the Model Human Occupation Screening Tool, and it's just to get an understanding, like I said, about how you're doing your everyday activities. So is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to get started, can you describe a typical weekday before your husband's passing?
Before?
Yeah.
So it used to be we'd get up, I would get the kids ready for school, take them to school, then my husband would get up, go to work, and then we'd all come home and eat dinner together as a family. He'd help me get them ready for bed, and then we usually had some like quality time, just me and him, before we went to bed, but now it's a lot different.
Okay. So can you tell me how it's different now?
So now the whole responsibility is on me. So I'm getting them ready, taking them, picking them up, doing the cooking for them. I actually haven't been doing much cooking. We usually will just pick up food on the way home. While they're at school, I really just spend my day in bed. I sleep a lot. And then I get them ready for bed, and then I usually go to bed at the same time. So.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that routine, a little bit more, what you do every day now?
Really
like, how do you start your day? Sorry.
I get up and pretty much right away get my kids up.
Okay.
And then I'll get them dressed and drive them to school. And then I come home, and I usually just go climb in bed, and we'll go to sleep, maybe get up, but usually just lay in bed, don't really do much anything.
Okay, so it sounds like you're very involved with your children still. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good. So your valued role as a mother hasn't changed at all? Like, you still feel very competent in your ability to take care of your children?
I definitely make sure that they have everything they need.
Okay. And how do you take care of yourself? How has your self-care been?
Honestly, not that great. I kind of just like forget to eat, to shower, to do just those little things. Just don't feel like it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just taking some notes. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. So, what limits your ability to do your self-care?
I think I just don't feel like it. Like, there's no purpose. I'm not going anywhere. No one's going to see me. Who cares, you know?
Okay. Well, can you tell me some things that you did before your husband's passing that you did, like, out in the community with your children?
Yeah. So I was part of a book club. That was really fun, but I haven't been back to that since. That was pretty much it. Socializing. I did hang out with my friends, like, on the weekends and stuff. We would go out and have fun, but haven't really been doing that anymore.
Are those things that you're interested in getting back into?
I think so. I just, don't feel like it. I have to be able to provide for my family now, which I never had to before, so there's just a lot.
Okay. We can definitely come up with some strategies to try to get you back into doing those things. So, thank you for sharing this with me. I just have a few more questions, and then you'll be good to go. So, can you tell me a few things that you do feel like you do well, or things that you're proud of?
Definitely taking care of my kids. I have made that a priority. I know I'm not doing a great job taking care of myself, but my kids are my first priority at all times. I make sure they have what they need and all of that, but other than that, that's really it.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about your home management?
Honestly, my house is kind of a mess right now. I just don't feel like doing the dishes, doing the laundry. I'll do my kids' laundry if they run out of clothes, but other than that, I really don't feel like doing anything.
Okay. Well, I wrote down some notes, and I'll go through and look at everything that I scored you on. So today I talked to you about mostly your motivation, your routines, and a little bit of your communication and interaction skills. So I'll keep you updated on those. And then the other areas that I am scoring on are processing skills, motor skills, and your environment. And I met with your psychologist and got a little information from them as well. So I will come back at our next meeting next week, and we can discuss your results and data, and we can come up with some goals and plans.
Okay.
So thank you for sharing with me.
Thank you.
Okay, so to interpret Mallori's data, this is what the sheet looks like that I marked up, and I have little notes on here talking about all the things that she mentioned in her comments. So you can do all of this on your own, or you can also collaborate with other team members. So to keep this kind of short with Mallori or my client, I did 3 sections with her, and then I got the rest of the information from her psychiatrist, which was the other 3 sections. So how you go about interpreting the data is just you look at the scores you gave them in each of the sections that you scored them in. And the goal is really to get them into allows or facilitates access into occupational participation. So all the areas where it says like I and R, you really just want to come up with some OT strategies to get them into the A's and F's on this. So there's not going to be like a set score or anything for your client, but this is just an assessment that you can assess multiple times throughout your time with them or your services with them, and then see improvement. So like I mentioned earlier, the MOHOST manual itself says that you can do it every 2 weeks if you would like. However, some clients you're probably going to have to work or wait a little bit longer to give another assessment, or some clients you may be able to do it a little bit quicker or sooner into your services with them. So it really just depends on your client and how they're improving. But yeah, that's basically the overall thing, is just to get them into the A's and F's of each of the categories, which means facilitates and allows occupational participation.